This is a video about desert plant adaptations. Now, as we know, deserts are severely lacking in one particular thing, and that's this: water. They actually receive less than 250 millimetres of rainfall a year. And if you add that to the fact that temperatures of hot deserts can reach up to about 40 to 50 degrees, and the potential threat from predators, that means that any plant in the desert needs to be very well adapted in order to survive there. So I'm going to give you 7 adaptations that many plants in the desert have in order to survive there. So here we go. Now, probably the most obvious adaptation that plants in the desert, such as cacti, have is their spikes. And that is just to discourage animals from eating them. You wouldn't want to have a bite of one of these, would you? Now, the second adaptation that lots of plants have in the desert is they have a waxy coating, like this one, on their stems and leaves. And all that does is that helps to prevent any water from being lost from the plant. Now, many plants in the desert also have long root systems that spread out wide across the soil or down deep underground in order to find water. And when they find this water, they store that in their stems and leaves, and these are called succulents. Now, adaptation number 4 is kind of an obvious one. If you look at this cactus here, it doesn't have any leaves, and that's because any plant that had leaves will often lose water through those leaves. So by not having leaves, cactus will reduce water loss. Now, for adaptation number 5, I'm going to wear this hat, and that's because if we went to the desert, we'd probably need a hat, and that would provide us with a bit of shade to stop our face and neck from burning. Now, one adaptation is quite similar to that. So many plants in the desert will actually have like small hairs on their stem or on their leaves if they have any, and that'll provide a bit of shade, which will therefore kind of protect them from the hot heat of the desert and therefore reduce water loss. Now, number 6 is actually quite a clever one. So in order to reproduce, desert plants can release seeds which can remain dormant in the soil, which is kind of like asleep in the soil. And they do that so that they can wait for the rain to come. And when the rain does eventually come, the seed will then grow into a plant. Now, the last adaptation is that many desert plants are very slow growing, and that means they need less energy. So they need to produce less food, and therefore they lose less water. And those were your 7 desert plant adaptations.